The exclusive home of the Utah Mammoth is on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Malinsky in front, they score. Victor Olofsson makes it 2-0. After the Mammoth turn it over at their own blue line. Right back to Keller. Sergachev looks in. Gunther unloads and scores! Dylan Gunther right back in his office like he never left. 2-1. A power play strike from the Mammoth. In towards the slot. They score! And it's Dylan Gunther again. He's got 2 tonight. Makar across. One-timer, they score! Martin Necas with a power play rocket. And it's 4-2.
You're locked into JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Thanks for being with us on the program on a Friday. I didn't mean to set anybody in. I didn't mean to get people grumpy about it. I'm not dissing your franchise when I say that their Forbes estimated value is lower than you may have thought, okay? What I'm saying is there's opportunities here, JJ, for you, me, and Alex Napolis to maybe pitch in. And if it's going to have to be with CF Montreal, by heavens, we'll do it. I'll start speaking Francais right freaking now, man.
Maybe Coach Turner be interested in an investment opportunity.
Hey, Coach.
Support the home team.
Bienvenue to your newest ownership. This little group of 3 right here.
I think he's a little busy with his own team right now at the moment, to be honest.
But we could still pitch it to him next week.
Of course.
During his weekly interview. Hey, Coach, I don't know if you're familiar with CF Montreal. Who? Anyway,
let's put it on the list of stupid questions we're going to ask him next Thursday.
Sign on the dotted line here if you want to be a part-time owner or a minority owner of a soccer team there in Montreal. All right, let me see here. Speaking of hockey, Cole Bagley is going to be joining us. He, of course, covers Utah Mammoth as an insider for KSLSports.com. He's going to join us coming up in about 30 minutes, so you don't want to miss that. Cole giving you a preview tonight between the Wild and the Mammoth, which we're also going to do right now. Okay. I was not able to hear the conversation that you and Sly had with our weekly dip in with the coach yesterday. Frankly, I think I picked a good day not to be here because it was, and Napolis told me too that Dylan Gunther was in making the rounds here in the building, and he's like, and you mentioned right that he was going to be coming by, and he's like, oh yeah. And this is a guy who had to have practice with him that morning. He's like, yeah, he's pretty grumpy today. And you know what? That tracked, right?
Yeah.
Because then you guys got him, and he's a little bit grumpy. Why wouldn't you be? When the things that he gave as criticisms of this team right off of the bat were what? There's like effort. That's what pisses a coach off, right? What makes Will Hardy the most mad?
Weren't physical enough.
Not physical, not the effort level that you want. Not playing hard on defense. Those are things that make Will Hardy nuts. He's like, look, we lost by a bunch of points tonight, but I like the direction we're going. We've heard that before. But when they played poorly because they aren't giving a lot of effort, it makes a coach nuts. And I think that's where Torney was. I think that's where Bear was because, and it's not to say that his team, wasn't trying. These NHL guys are busting their butt. However, you go up against the best team in the world right now, which the Avs are, the Colorado Avalanche are. You can't go halfway ever. You have to be 10% better than you normally are. You're on your home ice. You can't give a half effort. So how's it going to look tonight against the Wild? Another team that is freaking good in this division. One that is, at least a dozen points ahead of you in the standings.
Tied for the second best point total in the NHL.
It is right, and they're in second place because because the Avs are so dang good. But the Wild are a story this year. They have gotten maybe as the improvement that the Wild have had this year might be the best jump that we've seen of any team this year. They are playing insane hockey, and that's who the Mammoth face tonight. Let's kick everything off, though, officially here, and let's get talking about it with the top of the program. Let's do it.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Trajan Wealth brings you this portion of the program. For all your trusted local needs in retirement, trust the financial fiduciaries at Trajan Wealth, TRAJAN Wealth.com. That's TrajanWealth.com. Okay, Logan Cooley and Alex Kerfoot making their first starts since having both of their injuries and getting over those injuries and coming back from the Olympic break that we all did. We were anticipating those guys were going to hit the ice. They did. There is some version of the team normalizing, so to speak, right, JJ? I would assume that you can't just get right back to where you were with these guys. They had made such strides in having to put together a team that was gelling really well without Logan Cooley, without Alex Kerfoot. Obviously, Logan Cooley is a name that's going to be out on the ice quite a bit, and he signed that big contract this year. Is it one of those things that's going to take a minute to all get kind of back in and playing with one another and feeling normal, or what are we talking about here?
Yeah, I don't think that was the issue. I just think the team didn't play very well. I think that, and Coach said it in the interview, he said Krause and Kerfoot were their best players. Now, kudos to those guys. And how about Kerfoot coming in and being solid right out to that point? Kerfoot was ready to go. But when those are the guys you mentioned as your best players, you probably aren't. You're probably in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Because you're playing the best team in the league.
Yep.
So Gunther obviously scored some goals, but I don't think that the team as a whole played very good hockey the other night. They got some offense going in the second period, but the defense wasn't as good as it needed to be. The word that everybody used is rust. I don't know that Colorado had any rust, though. So it's not an excuse. You should have played better, and it was disappointing. Now, you've got Minnesota in town tonight, another great team, as you just mentioned. Might possibly be the second best team in the NHL right now. They've won 6 games in a row. I know a lot of that was before the break, but nice win last night. It was last night. They beat the Avs, right?
Yeah.
So the Minnesota Wild are good. Now, the good news for the Mammoth is they're getting the Wild on a second night of a back-to-back. They might be a little worn out and tired. So take advantage of it. I think if Utah comes out with the same effort tonight and is disappointing, that's going to be really disappointing because this is a game where you're coming off a loss where you didn't play your best. You come out and play your best tonight against a team that's going to be a little bit tired. I don't care if it's the Wild or whoever, or if it's the Canucks. You should win in your building, in your barn tonight, against that team. So I expect Utah to come out tonight with a better effort, with a better energy, be more physical, be the more aggressive team, and get a win over one of the best teams in the league. That's what I expect. That's the kind of response I want to see tonight.
As you mentioned, this is a team with 80 points.
Yeah.
Mammoth have 64. 16 points ahead of the Mammoth are the Wild. And I don't think the question is whether or not you're going to be able to run down the Wild or run down the Stars even.
No.
You're not asking them to do it. You need to be in that wild card 1 or 2 spot.
Number 1. That's your goal. Number 1 wild card.
That's where you have to be. Because right now, as it is, you're hanging on by a thread. And yeah, those wild card bids are by a thread, by the way. And by the end of the year, you remember how crazy it was at the very, very end there between the Blues and the Flames, right?
Look, if the Kings or the Predators get hot, it's not going to take much. And then all of a sudden, you're on the wrong side of this. So you've got to continue to play solid hockey. You got to be consistent. And what was the problem for the Mammoth during that period of time when things were going well? There was inconsistency. They would win one night, they'd lose the other. They'd look good one night, not so much the other. When they've found consistency, they've proven to be one of the best teams in the league. Just look at their goal differential. Plus 24. That's elite. That's among the best teams in the NHL. It's top 6. So you know this team is capable of playing that high of a level. They know they are. So why do you have some of those nights still?
Here's what's interesting. And ESPN put up a current playoff bracket right now if it were to start, which we love, if the playoffs were to start today. And this is why the difference between the wild card 1 spot versus the wild card 2 spot. If you're the wild card 2 spot in the West, you're playing the Colorado Avalanche in round 1. If you're wild card in that second spot, you play the Pacific leader, who is much more gettable than
no question.
than the Colorado Avalanche. In fact, the Avs, the Wild, and the Stars, you don't want to see any of those teams if you are the Utah Mammoth in the first round of the playoffs. But it's nice to be the wild card 1 team, and you could be taking on the Vegas Golden Knights on that side. And again, by the way, the Oilers and the Kraken are the other 2. So right now the playoffs would be set like this: Colorado 1, Minnesota 2, the Dallas Stars 3. You would have Vegas at 1, Edmonton 2, and Seattle 3.
The Ducks now moved up to 3.
Oh, the Ducks have just taken over.
They won 3 in a row. They're at 65 points.
Okay.
Now. The Kraken are now the number 2
Kraken are now
wild
the
card.
number 2 wild card. See what I'm saying about the hanging on by a thread thing?
Yes. Changes overnight.
It changes. And by the way, they will be right there, the Mammoth. They will be right there in that hanging by a thread situation if they don't put together some big-time wins over the next however many games are left. And I don't know. You just wonder if they can get back to the vibe that they had prior to the break. And you're looking at, I mean, right now ESPN has locks for the playoffs in the Central Division. All those 3 that are leading this thing, they are 99.9% chance of going to the playoffs because they're so far ahead. The work to do category are the Mammoth, the Preds, and there are teams like the Anaheim and the Seattle Kraken who are kind of toggling back and forth too. Yes. So it's not going to be easy. What's crazy is I think that the Jets have an 8% chance of going to the playoffs. Isn't that wild from last year when they were there?
They're crawling back into this.
They could get their stuff together. Maybe. They could. And then
they're 9 points out.
But again, the Kings are a team that are extremely dangerous, I think, if they get going. And the Kraken are coming out of nowhere and getting the wins that they are. And they're essentially tied with the Mammoth. I think they're 1 point off the Mammoth.
1 point difference.
So it's a wild thing to consider that every one of these games feels like it's a must-win for the Mammoth going forward here, because you can't afford to you can't go 4-4 over the next 8 games, because you're going to see teams like Anaheim or LA or the Preds go 6-2. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like that, you will have that. And then you're on the outside looking in. Just like that. That's how quickly it can change.
Here's the good news, though, and this should give you optimism. The analytics say the Mammoth have an 85% chance of making the playoffs as of right now. They would have to really struggle for that to dip quickly. So they got to stay steady, and I keep bringing it all back to consistency. As long as this team is consistent and they play their level of hockey, they'll be fine. They'll be there. I'm just a little worried that if this, they don't fix what happened on Wednesday, you're going to see a little bit of a dip, because we've seen that dip this year.
I don't know what the fixing is of and if you just tell your guys to come out and play a little bit harder. The Wild, you're right. The Wild got the Avs last night on the second night of a back-to-back.
Right.
And now the Mammoth are going to be getting the Wild on a second night of a back-to-back. And so you hope that that whole little trio of those teams who are all playing each other here at the very beginning of coming out of the break here, if they can split it against those two. You'd be happy to split those 2 games, by the way. I think you should be. Losing to Colorado is not that's not the assumption. That's a team that had lost 9 games until last night they lost their 10th game of the year against the Wild. But they come in and they had only lost 9 times on the season. And it's wild to think that's a team that they're facing. But going 1-1 against these 2 teams, I think you got to have it. Steal this one tonight, back on track.
Yep, I agree, and that's the opportunity ahead of them. They've got to find that consistency. I want to watch what Logan Cooley does tonight. I understand if first time out on the ice in 28 games plus the break, it's a long time. You're probably you can understand figuring some things out. He did have an assist the other night. He did manage to do that. I want to see him break out tonight and just really, really look like himself. And I kind of expect that. He's a top player.
He is.
And he's back, and he's healthy.
And he got paid.
Yeah.
And so everybody's looking at, and they're going, hey, man, sorry about that injury. But anyway, you got to get back to it because you're the guy that's getting the paycheck to be able to do this. And obviously the thing that he's known for is just kind of how, I mean, the guy, you can recognize 92 immediately on the ice because he's faster than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And coming back from that injury, it didn't look like it was any different. So I'm assuming there's a little bit of trying to get right back into it, actual game speed and practice speed, which you can never really simulate what a game feels like for these guys. Doesn't matter what level you're at. But all these professional sports, you cannot actually simulate real reps. You can practice really hard, and it will never be the same as playing in a game. So I think getting back under your feet in that sense, if you're Logan Cooley. Kerfoot, I think, did it because he's done this before. I mean, this is my 9th or 10th season, right, in the league. And so coming back and then getting right back into it might be a little bit more of a, hey, I know how to do this because I've done it before.
There's less pressure on Kerfoot, though.
And there's a lot less pressure.
And I think that Cooley feels that pressure, right?
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll see. If saying that there's rust, it's not. I mean, to me, it's like, yeah, but the Avs had guys that were on Olympic rosters too.
I guess their rust didn't show up until last night.
Right, and they were really probably just wasted from the night before.
Right.
Not that kind of wasted. Not James Harden at the Club wasted. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. Speaking of hockey, we're going to have our guy Cole Bagley come in here and set us straight on what the reality is of what the standings look like. Help us not live game to game when it comes to the ups and downs of what the NHL second. It's not even a half season, obviously. It's the last, even less than a third of the season left here. What can the Mammoth do? They're going to take on the Wild tonight. Cole's going to join us next right here at 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best coverage of the Jazz, Utes, and Cougars is right here on the Zone. This is JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time to talk hockey with the Utah Mammoth and NHL insider on KSLSports.com, Cole Bagley on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. Thanks for being with us on the program. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Friday. Mammoth, Wild, tonight, across the street here at Delta Center. 2 nights ago was the Colorado Avalanche, and, of course, that 4-2 loss was followed up by Bear Tourney, the head coach of the Mammoth, not feeling great by his guys' effort/toughness. Cole Bagley, our Mammoth insider for KSLSports.com, in studio here with us. What's going on, Cole?
Not much. Just back to the old grind.
Yeah.
Back to the regularly scheduled program.
Your Olympic break, wink, was not much of a break. So
I'm not allowing them to ever describe it as such.
Again. I think that at some point, you know, the guys, we saw how much we saw all your practice footage and stuff from during the quote unquote Olympic break and how much his team was working. And we talked to Bear about it, and he was like, yeah, we're hustling. We're getting this thing going. And so I think that part was that was such a letdown. Not the losing to Colorado wasn't the letdown, I don't think. Mm-mm. It was the effort and toughness. Those are the two things that Bear, it just made him. So did you notice the same thing game one back from the break?
Yeah, that first period was brutal. And second wasn't a whole lot better. There were 6 goals in that middle frame.
Yeah. But
4 of them belonged to Colorado. And so it's like, yeah, Utah's offense kind of started to figure things out, but their defense was just terrible. And a lot of it just had to come down to, like he was talking about. I mean, the effort just wasn't really there. They were just not very well connected. So many passes that were either too far or too short, turned over. And it's strange because, you know, the Mammoth really put themselves in a good position in terms of, they sent 4 Olympians, but the majority of that team had a nice break. Karel Vejmelka went to the Olympics, but he didn't play. Clayton Keller only played 18 minutes over in Milan. Oli Mata didn't play a ton of minutes. JJ Peterka played the most of anybody, but he was out the earliest. So, I don't know. It was definitely, Dylan Gunther and Logan Cooley both said that wasn't us. and we've got to figure, we've got to find ourselves here quick. And they do. This is not the beginning of the season, right? There's not like, hey, give us like a week or two to figure it out. No, tonight you have to figure it out.
So you can understand them having rust, first game back, yada, yada, yada. How concerned are you that this is something that can carry over? Or is it really just what they're saying? Just a bad night. We weren't ready to go. We got to fix this. And it had their attention.
I mean, Bear said that it could be bigger than that in his post-game interview. He kind of alluded to, it kind of goes a little bit beyond that. And so tonight, like, they've got to respond. You have to respond tonight. There can be no, you got to get at least a point. Like, that is the bare minimum. You got to at least get this thing to overtime. But a win is, I'd almost call it a must, but it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, you thought Colorado was tough 2 nights ago. Minnesota just whooped Colorado last night, 5-2.
In their barn.
Yeah. Now, the benefit is they're on a back-to-back, but, this is a team, Minnesota is kind of, after they made that trade for Quinn Hughes, they're a cup favorite. They've got 2 gold medalists, from the United States on this team playing tonight, and they both just had, Matt Boldy, who scored that first goal against Canada, he had 4 points last night. Quinn Hughes had 2 assists. And then you've got other guys down the roster like Kaprizov. He had 2 assists. So
no excuse for coming back from the Olympics and going, well, they're still getting our feet under us. We got that gold medal, bling in our eye, and that's the only thing. Those guys came back and they just started playing immediately.
Yep, they
did.
did.
As good as the Avs have been this year, the Wild are only 5 points behind them in the standings.
They might catch them.
It's possible. Who would have thought that?
No.
Earlier in the season, my goodness, the Avs were so good.
So the Wild are really good. The Wild are on a second night of a back-to-back also after an emotional win at Colorado last night. But you hit the road and you have to come out and you got to get it done right here across the street. How much of this is like even just the getting used to one another? They were in such a good kind of
groove
mesh moment like right before the break. And obviously adding a talent like Logan Cooley, you don't think to yourself, oh, they might take them a minute to get back into it. But that's exactly how this works. How much of that do you attribute to, you get these guys back, but you got to kind of figure it out still with them?
Yeah, the lines were completely different.
Yeah.
The top line was the only forward line that stayed the same. The other 3 all got jumbled with Cooley and Kerfoot coming back.
Right.
And I noted that, in my report of the game, against the Colorado is, they were rusty, and, you can't be too shocked by that. But they also had, an additional factor of you're embedding 2 players who haven't played. Cooley hasn't played in almost 3 months.
Right.
And Kerfoot has only played 9 games this season.
And you can have all the practice you want to get back, but it's different.
Yeah, it's totally different because they were in a groove without those guys. And not that you don't want to, bring those guys back, but it's going to be a bit of an adjustment. And, obviously they just didn't handle it well. So like I said, you have to forget that game against Colorado and come out, just on fire. They have to come out and dominate. That doesn't mean they're going to win 6-0.
Right.
But they've got to come out and they've got to be the team that's working harder.
What do you expect from Logan Cooley tonight, second time on the ice?
I thought he looked good.
Yeah.
It's funny. We asked Coach about, how did Logan Cooley look at his first game back? He's like, he looked the same as everybody else. He wasn't doing, he didn't play well. I'm like, that's a little harsh. He had an assist. He had a really nice assist, and he had a couple, a little bit of razzle dazzle. He had a couple moves out there. He had a little spinorama.
He looked healthy,
Yeah, he was playing with speed. He was confident on the puck. I thought he was being creative and seeing the ice well and playing with, honestly, I know that Bear talked about Krause and Kerfoot kind of being the 2 best players. I thought Cooley was right there with Dylan Gunther. Gunther obviously scored twice. But I think Cooley just continue to rev it up. Maybe he'll get a couple more minutes tonight. I think he played about 17 last game, so maybe he'll get up 18, 19 tonight. And no, I think the entire team understands that. Their performance against Colorado is just not going to get it done, and I would hope that we see a different team from the top down.
At this point last year, we were not thinking to ourselves that the Blues were going to find themselves sneaking into the playoffs. How many did they win in a row at the end of the year? Was it 12?
Like 13 or 14.
They had to get them all to be able to get to where they were because they had a tiebreak still with Calgary to get into the playoffs. So. Is there a team like that right now in the West you look at and you go, that's a little bit of a scary prospect that those guys could go on a run, get on a heater, and just boot the Mammoth or one of these? Because obviously wild card is your only spot right now if you're the Mammoth.
Yeah, man. I think if you look at the three teams that are just outside of the wild card spots, if you look at Nashville, they're only 3 points behind Utah.
Yep.
If you drop one tonight and Nashville wins their next game, you're just a point ahead of them.
Yep.
And with Nashville, there's a lot of veteran talent, a lot of veteran experience on that team, and guys that have won multiple Stanley Cups. And so that's a team that they've kind of entered the chat, if you will. You got to watch out for those guys. And then LA, they were very active. They picked up Panarin, and from I think a lot of talk around the league right now, they're still shopping. I think they want to make sure that they can make a real push and try to get in the playoffs. And then San Jose, they're a young team that's hungry. It's kind of a similar situation to Utah, and they've got, in my opinion, probably the future face of the league in Macklin Celebrini, who's very disappointed that he didn't bring home the gold for Team
Great
Canada.
Olympics. He was awesome.
Yeah, he was great. I mean, he was probably a top 5 player in the whole tournament. I think you probably need to watch out for those 3 teams because, look, you lose 2 games and any of those guys win 2, and they are right on your heels.
They're going to have to fight. It's going to be a battle all the way through, and I'm looking at the schedule right now. How do you think the schedule shapes up for the Mammoth? Is it favorable or not?
It's tough. I mean, let me go ahead and pull this up completely.
It feels like
now.
they played more road games than anybody, and then all of a sudden, after Sunday, they're back on the road again for a big trip.
Yeah, I think they've got 24 left. I think if I've counted correctly, 11 are on the road. And
This is cheating. The league's coming after him.
It's not fair.
Well, and you're playing a lot of tough teams, right? You got Minnesota tonight. You got to play Washington in a couple of days, and then they're going to Philly. And then not that Philly's a great team, but they're a tough opponent on the road.
They owe them one.
Exactly. And then you got to play Minnesota again in a week and a half. And then you're playing Pittsburgh, who's a playoff team. You're playing Dallas.
Oh, you completely glossed over the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Of course I did.
How did you skip that?
I know they're your favorite team.
What a juggernaut they got to play on Saturday, March 7th.
He likes to wear that Blue Jacket
That's going
sweater.
to be a tough one.
You got to play Edmonton, and then they have a brutal finish to the year. They have to play Edmonton, they got to play Nashville, they got to play Carolina, and they got to play Winnipeg and St. Louis.
Ugh.
And not that Winnipeg and St. Louis are great teams, but those are your last 2 games. Those teams will love nothing more than to
spoil
knock
your
you
party.
out.
Yeah.
Calgary
too.
Yeah, but Edmonton, Nashville, Carolina, like that's tough. You got to face Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. Then you got to host Nashville. It could be a 1-point difference at that. That could be like a play-in type game. And then Carolina, who is
tops in the East.
Yeah. Another Cup favorite. So no, it's I don't know that it's overly favorable for Utah. I mean, they're almost split 50-50 in terms of home games and road games remaining, and you got some tough divisional opponents you got to face.
So why do the analytics love the Mammoth so much to get that playoff spot? Because that's, if you're looking at it, I think it was posted like 85, 86%.
Yeah, I think a lot of their back-end numbers are in the green. If you look at their goal differential, they're the only team sitting outside of a top divisional spot that has a positive. And it's not like, oh, they're +2. No, they're +24.
Right.
And so, they've done a really good job at, scoring goals and keeping the puck out of their own net. And a lot of their games have been decided by just a goal. I think just a lot of those underlying numbers are trending positively for Utah. But that was before the break. They got to find that again. And if based on what we saw against Colorado, I know it's a small, that's not a lot to kind of really base how the rest of the season is going to go. A small sample size, but they cannot. You cannot afford to play that way again through any of these games.
Tight playoff races means that trade deadlines get even more exciting.
Yeah.
You're going to be out covering the team while they're out on the road during that whole thing. We're a week away from the trade deadline ending. Next week at this time, we'll know if the Mammoth have done anything. But how much of this can sometimes be affected by the fact that you're looking at it and you're going, okay, we could be making a little bit of a run here, or we need just that extra something to put us over the top, or that you could be a seller to maybe get some value back, or wherever that might be, because the general manager, Bill Armstrong, obviously is always looking for something. I mean, he's a smart GM. If you're not looking around for something all the time, you're not a good GM. So at this time next week, do you expect that the Mammoth will have made some moves to maybe improve their stock, or do you think maybe standing pat and just kind of getting used to things or getting things done with this group is the best way to go?
Yeah, it's tough. I think the Mammoth are in a unique situation where they could do anything. They could sit and just kind of say, you know what, we've played well this season. We believe in this group. Let's roll and just kind of see how the chips fall. But then, they could go and buy because they have the ability to do so, right? They have a lot of young prospects. They have a lot of, picks that are going to become less valuable to them as they've made the picks that they want to make for the most part, right? Like you've gotten your lottery picks. You jumped up to the 4th spot last year. You've got, you hit on Cooley, you hit on Gunther. They're playing incredibly well. You've got T.J. Ginla, Cole Baudouin, and Caleb Denoyer knocking on the door of, at a minimum, the AHL next season. And, possibly, I think one, maybe even two of those guys could make the roster to start the year. And so they have the ability to start moving assets. But at the same time, you've got Nick Schmaltz on your team. And if you don't feel confident that he's going to re-sign, you might as well move him, right? Yeah. You don't want to – I mean, it's not
Think about how much of an impact he's had on this team this year, too.
I know. And it's not comparable necessarily to the Gordon Hayward situation, but you don't want that. You don't want to think a guy's coming back and then he walks and you end up empty-handed.
You always want to get something back.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that Schmaltz doesn't want to be here. He's told me on the record he's really, really enjoyed his time in Utah. He wants to be part of the future. But things change, right?
And is there room?
And money talks.
Yeah.
This is a guy that's up for a huge pay raise.
And on top of it, he's having the best year of his career, arguably, right?
I mean, he's probably going to fetch $10 million AAV.
Wow.
He's making less than 6 right now.
Wow.
He's probably going to be up there.
Which would be the most of anybody on the team, right?
Outside of Gunther and Cooley?
Yeah, I think so.
What are they, though? Because I thought Cooley's
10.
8.5. Is it 10?
I think he's 10 AAV.
Either way.
I mean, that's
do
probably...
you want to spend that kind of money on Nick Schmaltz?
Exactly.
I get it.
29, 30?
When you've got these young guys coming up, makes total sense.
So this next week is going to be a task for Bill Armstrong to decide what to do because he could go any which way.
Yeah.
And
so while these guys are playing games, they have to sit down and chat with Nick Schmaltz and kind of get the reality of what the future's going to look like, and but actually not like really negotiating. They're just kind of guessing in some.
They've got to have a feel for what.
It's something that has to be considered. Like I said, I'm not saying that he's trying to get out of here and he's not going to resign, but it's real life. Like you have to recognize that's something that you got to look at.
Real quick, JJ's got one here before we get you. We're going to cut Cole loose here in a second.
Whether they're going to do something or not, what would they be looking for? What is this team missing right now that would get them over the hump?
Yeah, probably another top 6 forward. Defensively, I think they've figured it out. Sergachev and Durzi had a kind of a rough go when they first paired them together, but they have since started playing really, really well. So you're not gonna mess with that. John Marino and Nate Schmidt are one of the best defensive pairings in terms of just pure defense in the entire National Hockey League. Wow. And then Ian Cole and Nick DeSimone have played well. Plus, you have how many guys in Tucson, right? You got Simashev and Lamoureux. You don't need defense right now. Goaltending is something, a backup goaltender might not be a bad thing to look at. They obviously, you got to call a spade a spade. Like I don't think they have much confidence in Vitek.
Yeah.
He's not playing.
Yeah.
It's like,
and you're asking a lot
of Veggie. Yeah.
A lot.
I think it's going to be probably 80-20 split.
Jeez.
The rest of the way.
That might be interesting to see what happens during the deadline here coming up. Cole Bagley, you can get his hat trick tonight. He'll have it all dialed up. As soon as that game goes final tonight over across the street, you can, of course, anticipate that at KSLSports.com. Cole Bagley, our Mammoth insider for KSLSports.com, joining us here in studio. He's going to walk across the street to Delta Center right now. Cole, have fun, man.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate
We'll take a break. We'll come back. We've got more to go. We'll wrap things up, get you ready for that Mammoth pregame next. 97.5 KSL Sports Zone.
TV and radio collide.
Love it.
Wow. This is what you get. You're listening to JJ and Alex.
Don't touch that dial.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for being with us. Final segment of the show as we get you ready for the Utah Mammoth versus the Minnesota Wild across the street here at Delta Center coming up tonight. Pregame right here on your dial. And then the puck drops at 7 o'clock as well. Yeah, so it was interesting because we were going through and we're like, isn't it funny? You start looking at the money and you start going through and you start going, okay, how much is this guy worth? And if Nick Schmaltz gets traded because you're looking at it and going, I don't know what next year's going to look like, or I don't know if we're going to be able to pay this type of money to him, or I don't know if he's worth that much money. I don't know if that's, I mean, that you might be summer eating your season, right?
Yeah.
Then you'd feel like, okay, they're not going to be playoff ready. Nick Schmaltz has been a huge part of this team.
Yeah, you don't want to break this up at all. But if you do, you let him to go to free agency, you wind up with nothing, like Cole said. So it's a tough decision.
Yeah. It's
That's
always
business.
interesting to see what they do. It is. Mammoth and Wild tonight. JJ, what's your assumption on how this one's going to go?
I think the
What's your
Mammoth
thought?
respond. I think they're going to get a win tonight. The Wild come in second out of a back-to-back. The Mammoth have something to prove tonight. I like it.
They don't just have something to prove. They, I think, know that they could kickstart everything going really well the second half of the season if they start getting it going right
Absolutely.
now. All right. You're going to get the Mammoth and Wild call coming up, of course, at 7 o'clock and a 6 o'clock pregame. You don't want to miss it. We'll be back again next week. 97.5 EKSL Sports Zone.